College basketball today, right here on SportsGrid. Great to be with you before the Final Four in the men's game kicks off. We have quite a bit to get to in the women's game as well. Luckily for you, you've come to the right spot. Kevin Walsh alongside Coach James Young and JY. Man, oh man, do we have a couple of items on our plate today?
I'll tell you what, nothing like getting ready to break down the national semifinals in a men's game. And Gino Aram just said, you know what? I think I'm just going to hijack part of your show today because if I'm going out with a loss, I'm going out on a sword. And man, Kev, were there fireworks last night?
It's very interesting to watch. The women's game, it's something I think both JY and I have kind of, we've taken pride in, our coverage of the women's game on Pro Basketball Today, Betting Above the Rim, obviously, whatever it might be. And listen, I think there are times probably where we're like, oh man, is everyone else talking about this? South Carolina, UConn last night was the story in the sports world. We, of course, will be previewing Michigan, Illinois, and Arizona. Arguably the two best teams in the sport go head-to-head. And on the other side, it's Illinois and it's UConn. It's Dan Hurley again. It's this Huskies team again. But it's Brad Underwood and the Balkan boys, as they like to call them. So we're going to get to this in great length, of course. But, Coach, UConn-South Carolina comes with a couple of storylines. And I'm not stealing, but I thought Andrea Carter of the ESPN broadcast made an interesting point of, I wonder if it was on purpose, the Gino antics, because instead of talking about UConn getting dominated, we're talking about Gino kind of losing his mind a little bit. Where did the Gino, Dawn Staley coach battle land for you?
Kevin, she was so spot on with this, and that's the immediate takeaway that I saw. I want to take you people back a year, and I want to work my way forward really quickly. Gotta remember, last year, South Carolina was the presumptive number one team in the country. And if people remember, UConn went down there to Columbia and beat them down. I mean, beat them down, Kevin, to the point where you were like, whoa, that's when, if people remember, the title market flipped from South Carolina being an overwhelming favorite to be the national champion to UConn. Well, what happened? UConn did it again in the finals. Dawn's got a lot of pride. You know what I'm saying, Kev? She's a Philly kid. She's Philly tough, and she's going to have her kids ready to play. And I want people to understand this, and hopefully this will make sense from a coaching perspective. You are a coach of a very physical team. UConn is about finesse and skill. South Carolina is about athleticism and sheer toughness. Like, we're tougher than you. When you get your kids ready to play, you have to let your kids know, hey, you got to do this based on how the referees let you play. And Dawn's intensity towards her players and towards the officials can sometimes skew games in her favor. There's nothing wrong with Dawn Staley did. It's gamesmanship. And if Dawn Staley was too much with the officials, like Gino Auriemma said at the end of the third quarter, they would have banged and they would have teed her up. Now, Kevin, we also know that in order to get teed up in a national semifinal, you got to do a whole hell of a lot worse than probably Dawn Staley said or did to get teed up. So South Carolina's game was at their advantage, the physicality. And here is where UConn ran into trouble. I hate to say it because I love some of these coaches. I'm friends with some of them. It's called the Big East. It's called that they don't get challenged enough throughout the totality of the season. They don't see South Carolina's physicality. They don't see LSU's athleticism. They don't see the guard play of Vanderbilt. They don't see that in the Big East. Kind of like we saw Gonzaga just look completely out of themselves when they were in the tournament because the WCC, it's a different animal when you get to the big dance. So that is what happened. And plus, you also had a team in South Carolina that looked at UConn and weren't scared of UConn. And they took it to them. So what happens then? Gino goes to the cameras and the third quarter, and he does his turn, which is he rips the officials in front of Holly Rowe. If you notice, Kevin, there were some quick whistles. Boom, boom, boom. Early third quarter. I think Edwards picked up like 2 or 3 fouls early in the fourth quarter that you thought maybe would swing the game. Didn't matter. The referee still didn't have enough time to balance it out, and they just allowed South Carolina to play physically. So you're right, and I just want to give people the coach's context of what I saw watching the game. It's very simple. We should be celebrating, and I mean celebrating, the beatdown that Dawn Staley gave Gino last night. We should be, but we're not, because Gino smartly moved it off the getting his you-know-what kicked to she didn't shake hands, and I'm going to take the bad guy. And that's also Gino, in a way, folks, I'm going to say it differently, protecting his kids because they got their tail kicked last night.
So I think there's so much here with this game. From the game end of it all, UConn is obviously one of the best teams in the country, okay? But UConn had not played a team on the 1, 2, or 3 line since December 20th. Since December 20th. They only had played over the course of the full season 2 or 3 games against teams of that caliber. The Big East sent 2 teams, UConn being one and a 10-seeded Villanova the other. So you look at last night's game where the number closes 6.5. If you made odds makers set it again for today, it might be pick. It drops 4 or 5 points off of the one game because you have to move off of sample sizes like that. And I think South Carolina was incredibly impressive. We will talk some South Carolina, UCLA, before we are done here today. But the Gino stuff, Coach, I'm not sure how intentional it was, because what I actually thought was worse, you mentioned the Holly Rowe interview, JY. There was a line in there that actually really in real time didn't sit right with me, and I'm wondering how it landed for you. When he goes on to say, their coach rants and raves on the sideline and calls the referees some names you don't want to hear. In my opinion, you're attacking someone's character now. You're now saying that's not even a good person over there. They get to do things that nobody else would get to do. And that lands in an interesting way twofold. First of all, Gino, no self-awareness. You're at UConn, okay? Old buddy Dan pretty much body slammed a referee last week after Braylon Mullen's shot went in, and they just let it slide. So you're missing the plot immediately on that end of it. But here's the other. Listen, Gino Auriemma has been there for 30, 40 years at this point. Gino Auriemma is almost, and you can tell me if I'm reading too much into it. I wonder if Gino thinks Dawn can do things I can't do. For whatever the reasons are, Dawn can do things I can't do. Well, maybe Gino's not the guy for the job anymore. Because I can tell you this, we can read body language. What Gino did last night didn't only not sit well with Dawn Staley. And I wonder how it landed for Sarah Strong. And I wonder how it landed for other girls on that team or recruits coming in or potential players who will be in the portal. And I wonder how close we are to the last game of Gino Auriemma's career, because we're a lot closer to the end than the beginning. I can tell you that much. We'll take a break here on college basketball today. We will get back and get into the men's game, the Final Four, Michigan and Arizona, UConn and Illinois. An incredible Final Four awaits us on this Saturday. It's Kevin Walsh and it is Coach James Young. We'll be right back. All right, back here on college basketball today. We're going to get over to the men's game. We will talk a little bit, of course, around South Carolina and UCLA being set in the national title game, how UCLA and Texas played out. Stunning in the worst way performance for Madison Booker that it's still kind of hard to wrap my head around. But let's get after the men's game here, JY. And I know you're usually supposed to go in order, but I can't help myself because it's Arizona and it's Michigan. And there are a lot of people who would argue these are the two best teams in college basketball. And with respect to the Duke Blue Devils, I think that would be the correct side to argue. I know Duke was the number one overall. I know Duke beat Michigan. They were worthy of a lot. But for me, the caliber of basketball that these teams have been playing, I find myself gravitating towards Arizona and Michigan just as the top two teams in college basketball. And man, it's a fun game to break down, JY, because, you do the side by side and you're like, how's anyone going to score? How's anyone going to get a stop? They're both so elite on both sides of the basketball here. Tell me what stands out to you when you handicap Michigan and Arizona.
Honestly, it's the evenness of this matchup, Kevin. I think you're making a great case. No disrespect to Duke, but if you look at not just the performance of these teams that they played during the regular season, but in the case of the Big Ten, how they performed in the NCAA tournament, you could also say this is the top team from the two top leagues in regards to the totality of their seasons, right? So neither one of them have ducked anybody. And with all due respect to Duke, except for that win that they had over Michigan and DC, what are we going to go on? One Carolina game, a Virginia team that we think may have been overrated? So I think that's the thing that I take away first off is these teams are battle tested. And that is something to say about them. And then when you look at the matchup and you're absolutely right. So you guys know this, and we talk about it every week. Kevin and I, without talking to each other, we use KenPom. I love KenPom because I think KenPom is a way, Kevin, you can go apples to apples, right? And then you start breaking down this game, you're like, all right, so what do we have here? I don't know. Just the number one and number two teams in defensive efficiency. Psh, yikes. All right. Nobody's going to score in this game. All right, well, now we have the number 4 and number 5 team in offensive efficiency. Well, wait a minute. Maybe no one can get a stop. Oh, wait a minute. These two teams are both top 10 in effective field goal percentage defense. Okay, so no one can make a shot. But they're both top 30 or top 40 in effective field goal percentage offense. They don't turn the ball over. They secure rebounds. They make their free throws. They hit threes. They hit twos. They defend threes. They defend twos. And it's literally, this is the ultimate coin flip. And Kev, I don't know where you're landing. I am all over the place in regards to how to break this game down because there's so many compelling storylines. And no matter, Kev, which direction you go, it's basically even between the two teams.
It's so fun. It also is a moment to appreciate how good these teams are because, so Michigan, right, is obviously an elite defense. So you go, all right, how have they fared against other elite defenses when they were playing, in Big Ten basketball? Nebraska's the only other top 10 defense in the Big Ten. That's it. And now they're playing Arizona. Yeah, all right, man, you know what? Arizona's probably seen a bunch of offenses like this. No, they haven't. Arizona is the only top 10 offense in the Big 12. The only one. BYU was next, 11th. Does anyone think BYU offensively presents the challenges that Michigan does? I don't. What stood out to me, JY, though, in breaking this game down is two things that Arizona on the offensive side of the ball are elite at. That they, 9 out of 10 times will be able to rely on. Offensive rebounds, getting to the free throw line. I'm not so sure that's just going to be here at will. Michigan has a super elite rim protector in Ademara, and they've got size everywhere you look. and their ability to close out possessions and defend without fouling, to me, are the key in this game. I think the total is so difficult because both of these teams play with pace. So I think both these teams could have off nights and we fly through the number. Goodness me, if we have these teams hot. I mean, this might look like an NBA game, which we would love to see break out. And that could be a lot of fun. But I entered this game feeling like Michigan was the best team in college basketball. I entered this tournament feeling like Michigan was really the best team in college basketball. Nothing has really changed for me, JY, when I break this game down. I'm on the Wolverines here. I think they have enough everywhere. And we'll talk some X factors here in just a little bit. But I think Michigan has a easier path towards getting stops than Arizona does when I line these two teams up.
To me, it's the guard play that's going to decide this. And you can look at Burries and Bradley being the superior backcourt. But Kevin, I think there will be fireworks, but I think this is going to be a boxing match. I think there's going to be a lot of jabs early on. I like under 73.5 in the first half. I think we're going to get a slow start. I think teams are going to lean on their defense. You're going to be a little nervous energy because people may think this is the national championship game. Even remember '83 when Louisville played, Houston, and everybody thought NC State winner. They're not going to make it to the finals. And then we saw what happened with Jimmy V. I think it goes under, but I also think even though they practice there, folks, go try shooting a basketball in a football stadium. I'm a big with backdrops. I mean, Kevin, I know where I'm going. I keep thinking about the MAC tournament as a Monmouth coach and shooting at Convention Hall and having about 500 feet behind one basket. You can shoot a layup, and you feel like you're shooting a half-court shot. So I think there's something to be there. I'm looking at under 73.5 in the first half.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Let's take a quick break and come on back and talk about some X factors in this basketball game. We've got a very interesting Arizona backcourt in Jaden Bradley and Braden Burries. Braden Burries also, respectfully, turns out to be 55 years old. That was a piece of news I didn't really know. How about these Michigan bigs? That's all next right here on SportsGrid. Michigan against Arizona. The winner of this game is going to be booked as the favorite, we know, in the national championship matchup. And these are two very deep teams. And there are a number of guys that you could point to and say, that's my X factor. That's my X factor. And I'm curious who it would be for you, Coach. But for me, Juarez Johnson really stands out. Where I don't know if Ade Mara is all of a sudden going to be able to give this team, 35 minutes. And there are elements of Mara where I'm like, is he going to be able to, guard without fouling? But Juarez Johnson is someone who we know can be really good on the glass. We know can guard in space. And I think, people will kind of match it up. Krivas to Mara, Morez to Koa Pete. Krivas has really struggled against opponents like this. Houston really is what I'm referring to. Koa Pete's, especially offensively, has started to find his rhythm. And I think it'll be Morez Johnson's job to disrupt him. But I also think it'll be Morez's job to hit the offensive boards, right? And finish easy opportunities created by Cadeau and Lendenborg on the offensive side. Morez Johnson really stands out to me in the props market as somebody who likes Michigan. Morez Johnson stands out a little bit as well. Is there a guy, either side of the court, JY, who feels like the X factor to you?
Yeah, you just mentioned him on the other side, and that's Koa Pete. And it's not his points, it's going to be his rebounds. His rebound number is at 5.5 on FanDuel at minus 120. And I think that's a low number for a guy that's gone over 5 out of the last 6 games. I think this is where, when you have games, right, like this, Kevin, where I think there's going to be points, not the whole time, where you struggle to score, you have to make sure that you have the ability to secure rebounds and create extra possession. So when you look at Arizona, you look at Koa Pete. Koa Pete is one of their best offensive rebounders. And if I think the two bigs cancel each other out, then I got to go find who can get the rebound. Mm-hmm. That's Koa Pete. Koa Pete over 5.5 rebounds. I'm going to tell you right now, that's my, if we have, but play of the day, pick of the day, 3-man weave, 5-man weave, 2-man weave, 1-on-1, whatever you get. Koa Pete over 5.5 rebounds. I think he goes up and overtime. I don't know if he scores enough, but I think he's going to rebound enough.
Can I ask you about Pete specifically, where he's had moments, I think, where it's like, man, Koa Pete going back to college isn't terrible, right? He's not going to go top 5. He absolutely, would be a force next year. But now in this tournament, he's averaging, 18 and 7 on some efficient shooting for the most part here. Do you think that Koa Pete is someone who can get himself to be a top 10 pick when we start talking, the draft, JY, in late June? Or do you see some value in this kid going back to school?
No, I still think, when you look at the draft, Kevin, a lot of it's going to have to do with where these kids line up, right, in regards to what teams specifically need. But because of his athleticism, and listen, Kevin, you know how this is. Every year you get older, you go down. Now, what Koa Pete's got to decide is, do I come out now and go somewhere between the 8 to 12 range, or do I go back to a weaker class to try and be top 5? You never know with these kids. Do you take the chance now, or you go, or you wait and take a chance, and go back for another year? To me, if I'm Koa Pete, the way he's playing, I think he comes out, and this could put him kind of the way like Darius Acuff kind of came flying up the draft boards the way he played the last month of the year. I think the same thing could be a Koa Pete. Final 4, big stage, big weekend. Arizona wins the national championship, and maybe he's most outstanding player, which is possible because he's an X factor for me. Say this guy is going to be a top 10 pick.
Yeah, I think Koa Pete, if he came back, it would, if anything, at this point, it would be about being a kid from Arizona saying, I'm not leaving here without a championship. Give me another run at it. Because for someone like Koa Pete, so look, here's a quick game of trivia. What's Koa Pete shooting from 3 in the NCAA tournament? The answer is nothing. He's an attempted 3. All of a sudden, you allow yourself to come back for a year Yeah, you might go top 5, or they nitpick a 6'8" kid who refuses to shoot the three, where I think even if Koa Pete goes 18, 19, right? We go, you know what? That's a good organization. He's going to give him good minutes. I don't know if Koa Pete ever makes an all-star game, right? I wouldn't be betting on it, but I think Koa Pete has likely put himself in the position where the draft will be calling his name. We know that is the case for Yaxel Lendenborg, who's really been helping his stock throughout this tournament and is a pretty clear favorite to win the most outstanding player award in this tournament. Let's make the move. It's UConn and Illinois next right here on SportsGrid. Illinois and UConn on the other side of the bracket. Kevin Walsh and Coach James Young with you here on SportsGrid. The Illini check in as a slight favorite in this basketball game, but with respect to UConn never far out, some of those 2.5s have come on down to 1.5 for a game, Coach, that we actually saw earlier this year and has to be one of the most useless games you could imagine when you talk about, oh, we saw that game. Why do I say that? Keaton Wagler played 14 minutes, Tyrus Reed played 15 minutes, and I immediately suggest we all strike the game from the record. I'm not saying that because UConn won. Look, I'll be on UConn in this game, but just it's each team's most important player. They played less than a combined 30 minutes when tonight they will each be playing. It's likelier that these two play 40 minutes, okay, than 15 in this ball game tonight, barring any injuries, of course. Coach, take me through it, man. UConn, Illinois, how do you break this game down?
You know, I think you mentioned the X factor, and you know, Kevin, I'm usually gonna go with the bigs. It's Tyrus Reed. He is playing at a level in which I think Coach Hurley was hoping for out of the big man. I mean, yeah, Kev, yeah, we're going to really take into account a 15-minute 0 for 3 performance for Tyrus Reed and say, yep, we're going to take the under in Tyrus Reed in the game tonight. No, that is absolutely not happening. This guy has been absolutely cooking as of late, playing big minutes. keeping himself out of foul trouble, up to 14.7 points per game, about 8 or 9 rebounds, and just a ferociousness inside that I think as he has gotten going, they have gotten better. And those back-to-back 20-point and 26-point performances by Tyrus Reed really kind of lets you know that he is the anchor of that team. Because if he's able to score and dominate inside, now what do? You may have to bring a double team. You may shade your defense. Now Ball, now Demary, now Caravan, now Mullins. Those guys get open. And if you think about UConn, maybe not the way Donovan Clingan was a post presence in regards to just making post moves. He wasn't present enough that you got to give him the ball. You have to think about him, whether it's offensive boards or dunk spot or simple post moves. Same thing with Adonis Sanogo. UConn is at their best when they got someone in the pivot that you have to worry about. And if you worry about that, then everything else opens up. That's the X factor. And that's why I think UConn's going to win, because he will get the better of any big on Illinois.
Yeah, I mean, Tyrus Reed has really broke out over the last month or so, and it feels just like a force in every single game that UConn plays. As you go into this game, the one thing that Illinois relies on, I mentioned it a little bit with Arizona. For Illinois, it's even more important. It's offensive rebounds. And I think one of the reasons that Illinois probably rely on it so much is Arizona don't shoot threes, right? So Arizona, it's kind of like layup, quick miss, quick jump, grab it, go back up, quick miss, right? Illinois bomb triples, right? And there's, big rebounds and everybody just hunts boards. Hurley is the type of coach where, man, coaching matters. Coaching matters. Like, I'm not Dawn Staley was given an opportunity to tell the South Carolina Gamecocks that they were big underdogs in a game. There's not many times that Dawn Staley gets to do that. I think it helps. Dan Hurley gets to go into a game and tell his team they're going to try and punk you on the glass. Hurley himself might tell his teams, I think they're going to punk you. Prove me wrong. And here's the thing. Solo ball, give up an offensive rebound. That might be your last minute, brother. Okay? We might watch Eric Ribe out here for 15 minutes if Tyrus Reed isn't hitting the board. Because there is no way Hurley is going to let his boys get punked. I refuse to believe it. So I don't think Illinois is going to be able to score it all that easily, JY. You know what I'm saying here?
Kev, I was actually getting flashbacks of coaching against Mr. Hurley and me watching him across the sideline being like, yo, that dude's crazier than me. Like, I mean, I remember him, I don't even want to get into what he told me before the game, but Dan and his father, and Bobby too, they have a way that they could, like, get into your mind and get into your head. And not in a way to say they're going to punk you or to make you feel bad about yourself or to intimidate you, but to motivate you.
Yeah.
Dan Hurley's team don't get punked out. There's only one time I saw them get punked out, and that was St. John's at the Garden at the Big East Final. And I swore from that day, I'm like, that's not happening the rest of the season. And Hurley let it happen. Sometimes these coaches do this. Like, you lose the battle, we'll win the war. And since then, you've seen it. And if you thought that was, if you thought that Dan Hurley could not do that, K-Dub, you don't come down 19 points in the second half versus Duke, unless your team is mentally tough. I don't know if those kids are going to get a pregame meal. They may not even get a snack. I don't even know if they're going to get water today. But I'll tell you this much. By the time they play, what is 6:09 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Kevin, they're going to be foaming at the mouth. And the crazy thing is, the dude on the other sideline, Brad Underwood, he's a Huggy Bear disciple. He's just as crazy as Dan is. But because of the fact that Dan's been there before, Caravan's been there before, they know it, they've seen it, they believe it. They're not going to be scared of the moment. And I think they have the best player inside. I think they're going to have the more motivating team. And they will, forget offensive rebound. If Wagler or Boswell, if they get an open three, those kids may sit the bench too. They're going to be all over them like you know what. Love UConn in this game. I'm more comfortable taking UConn in this matchup than I do in Arizona and Michigan.
The other element that, I feel like a lot of people have been waiting to catch up to Illinois all year. It's such an outlier, it almost feels impossible. Turnover percentage. Okay, so what percent you turn your opponent over? Illinois isn't low. Illinois is dead last. And you might be like, oh, like, is that normal? Yeah, sure. Here are the other five. Here are the other bottom five teams. North Florida, James Madison, Northern Colorado, and Coastal Carolina. No, it's not normal, man. No, it's not normal that Illinois can't turn anyone over. And I think one of the things that worries me occasionally when I look at the UConn Huskies is just turnovers and Silas Damari. And we saw how that kind of caught up to him a little bit in games against St. John's. So I think that not being a piece of this basketball game feels relevant. It does. The other thing too, UConn all of a sudden just does have a little bit of like no one can beat this team if you let them get far enough, right? But let's go a step further. So in the last 4 tournaments, the only game Dan Hurley's lost was to the eventual national champions by 2. Last year to Florida as an 8 seed, mind you. Man, it's been a long time since someone's actually beat Dan Hurley. Beat Hurley in a tournament game. We'll see if Illinois can do it tonight. We'll talk some X Factors and Women's National Championship as well. Okay, back with the guys here on college basketball today. And JY, we talked some X factors for Michigan and Arizona. I don't know. I wouldn't be stunned if we landed on the same guy. Or maybe I guess you've kind of established it's Taris Reed, and I totally get where you're coming from. Alex Caravan does feel so important in this basketball game, though. And one of the ways Caravan feels really important, and look, we have to believe in math, and Illinois is going to shoot a lot of threes. At UConn doesn't shoot. I mean, it's not Arizona level. We don't shoot threes, but they don't shoot a ton. But Caravan's really upped his volume in the tournament. He's at nearly 8 attempts a game. In the regular season, he was at 5. So I think Caravan, not just the leadership of it all, JY, but I think Caravan's scoring started this tournament with 20 plus in each, 17 in the game against Michigan State. I think Caravan, not just emotionally, I think he needs to legitimately be one of the best players on the floor in this game.
Well, Kevin, I think the reason why he's got to be one of the best players on the floor, honestly, is the fact that his experience, right? If I look at a team to be tight, I look at to the guy that's been there. Well, here's a guy that's been a contributing member of a team that's won, back-to-back national championships, right? So who else do I think is going to be ready to go is Alex Caravan. So I think you're right. So, you could look at a couple of different ways with Alex. If you want to go, the 3+ made threes, I think it's at plus money. It's a plus 148. The problem is 2+ made threes are like a minus 160, minus 166. So maybe you could try and parlay yourself into a way where you go, let's say Caravan, 4+ rebounds or 2+ made threes. You parlay them, and now you get yourself to even or plus money, right? As a way to kind of look at it. But I think you make a good point. You got to rely on guys that have got you there. And if I think UConn has got to have an advantage, it's going to be that the head coach and the leader of the team, I think that, if I'm not mistaken, Kevin, may have played the most games in the history of UConn men's basketball. And that says a lot, considering back in the day where guys went to school for 4 years. That's an outstanding accomplishment. So, yeah, I think Caravan is a smart choice. Mine is going to be Taris Reed because I think he's going to dominate the game. But to me, if you want to go ahead and do like a 4+ rebounds, 2+ made threes for Alex Caravan, Kevin, I can see that happening, honestly, in the first half as he maybe kind of unlocks some of the scoring, especially if Taris Reed is able to establish something down low early in the game.
All right, so JY, I do want to get over to the women's game, and we can either do the pick some stuff for South Carolina, UCLA in the next segment, but I do want to ask you about UCLA and Texas. I will say, I don't know if I've ever seen a game just like at no point find any type of offensive rhythm in the way that this game did. I mean, it was something. I think the total was I want to say 34 and a half. I mean, we ended up with 95 points, and that was basically due to a big fourth quarter with some fouls kind of late, really helping out. I think that, look, it's unfortunate. Nobody, wants this to be the case, but the story of the game, Coach, Madison Booker went 3 for 23. She made the first shot of the game. I think she missed her next 12. I mean, she was 2 for 20 at a point. I mean, 3 for 23 from not just Texas's best player. Madison Booker is, I mean, you can tell it better than I can, Coach. One of the best players in the country, will be one of the favorites for the Wooden Award, I would imagine, next year when we talk about the women's game.
Well, simply put, Kevin, when you are first-team All-American, you have to perform at first-team All-American stats, right? And if you look at Lauren Betts, I mean, Lauren Betts wasn't like off the charts great, but she still got you 16 and 11 and 7 out of 10 from the floor, right? Madison Booker just had the worst time to have, let's be honest, Kevin, the worst game of her collegiate career. And when you rely so much on that one person, that's a lot. Listen, her and Rory Harmon combined to go 7 for 34. So Rory Harmon, the second best player, wasn't good either. I mean, if Olakir, I say her name wrong, doesn't give you 11 and 7, what do they get? Kevin in may not get to 35. Now, listen, I will tell you from experience, the women's Final Four games come down to a screeching halt. Go look up the scores. Very rarely do you get high-flying scoring games. You did a little bit with Caitlin Clark, just because of the three-point shot and stuff like that. So it sets up an interesting dynamic. I'm going to say this for Texas. Madison Booker's not coming out. Rory Harmon is graduating. They need a point guard. They need a point guard that's going to get her the ball. And there's a plethora of point guards in the portal, and there could be some surprises going into the portal. It all starts with, Kevin, isn't it so crazy? When I tried to talk to people over the weekend, like yesterday, about the whole executive order with Trump, you know what I got more? What happened? What, you don't know what's going on? He goes, no, we're in the portal. We're already looking for next year. So that tells you where the focus is. But Texas, they'll be good for next year. But I think the point guard spot is where you need to be looking for the Longhorns.
For UCLA, it's such a core that they've had, right? Betts and Rice at the top. Gabby Jaquez has been there, obviously, a long time. And you saw what it meant to UCLA to beat Texas and make that title game. For a second, it made me think, oof, the national championship might be too much. Like, it's such a stage. And on the other side, it's Dawn, who's going to be as angry as ever, probably, or, motivated as ever. And there's an element of me that's like, man, that's going to be a lot. But also, UCLA received AP first overall votes in the final poll before the tournament. There were some people who wondered if UCLA, with what they had done, just the one loss, who they played, who they beat, deserved the number one overall seed. So I don't think the Bruins should be completely counted out in that game. That line opened 1.5 South Carolina. It is actually up to 3.5 now on South Carolina. Total at 130.5. We'll see if JY has a pick for that game. We will give you our best bets for the men's Final Four after the break on SportsGrid. All right, let's put these picks on the board. It's been a great time being with everybody here on college basketball today. Kevin Walsh, Coach James Young. JY, let's just do it quick here. Sunday is the Women National Championship game, South Carolina and UCLA. 3.5-point spread, 130.5 for your listed total, JY. How I know it might be a little early, but I know you look at these games. How would you be betting this one possibly?
I would be looking at South Carolina minus a point. If Dawn Staley allows her team to play like this, to turn around and not win a national championship, they may not even be allowed back on the flight home. And that's a flight from Phoenix back to Columbia, South Carolina. I love South Carolina. I think that they're going to have the athleticism that they will not be able to match with UCLA. I think it could be something of, hey, Lauren Betts, get hers one-on-one, shut down the guards play. We have better guards than Johnsons, not sisters, but the Johnsons. Raven and Tessa will be too much, along with Joyce Edwards in the front line. I like South Carolina by about 10 or so points to win the national championship.
I have my eyes on the total. Both games were bang unders, both games in the Final Four, but this total is very reflective of that. This total is about 4 points lower than UCLA Texas. If you look, in common opponents in the SEC, Texas totals were higher than South Carolina totals. I'm going to try and see that they've adjusted too far and likely play that game towards the over. Game number 1 of the men's Final Four, Coach. It is UConn. It is Illinois. The totals have not budged pretty much from open in these games. 139.5 for Illinois and UConn. Huskies about a 1.5 to 2 point underdog here against Brad Underwood and the Balkan Boys.
The Balkan Boys meet Terrace Reed. Meet Terrace Reed. I'm going to take UConn on the money line. I'm going with experience of Dan Hurley. I'm going with the experience of Alex Caravan. I'm going with the post play of Terrace Reed Jr. I think he's going to be a problem. If you could find, I feel like Terrace Reed's going to have a monster game. If you can find double doubles, go look at double double. I think he's going to own this game. I think he's going to get guys into foul trouble and be the X factor, opening up the outside shot for Caravan and others. I'll take UConn on the money line and then find yourself a Terrace Reed double double.
Yeah, Terrace Reed, certainly at least from a rebound perspective, being posted at 9.5 right now. So I'm sure that'll certainly be tempting here for those that do not remember. And I mean, how could you not? Terrace Reed, 27 rebounds in the opening game of the tournament against Furman. I know Illinois is not Furman, but 27 is still 27. I like UConn in this basketball game. It is no disrespect to Brad Underwood to say that the Huskies have the better coach, because I think Hurley is almost reminding people that, yeah, I'm still the best coach in the country. And Hurley has lost one time in the tournament in the last 4 tournaments, and it was to the eventual champions by 2 as an 8 seed against those Florida Gators. Illinois relies on offensive rebounds, and I do not think that Hurley will allow his team to be abused on the glass. Illinois or UConn occasionally struggles to defend without fouling. Illinois actually don't draw a lot of fouls, so I think that'll help. I think the Huskies' path to scoring on the inside will be available through Terrace Reed, like JY has mentioned. And then it is Arizona and Michigan. Very easy to argue the 2 best teams in the country. Certainly the winner of this one will be the favorite in the national championship game. A 1.5 point number, minus 120, minus 125 money line prices on the Wolverines. Total here, JY, 157.5.
Yeah, I'm going to take the first half and it's going to go under 73.5. So that makes you think that they are expecting slow start. I expect an extremely slow start. Number 1 and number 2 in defensive efficiency in the country, according to KenPom. I think they rely on their defense. I think it's a feeling out process, a little bit of like a jab boxing match to start the game. And playing in a football stadium is going to cause problems early with the crowd. It can be under 73.5 in the first half between Arizona and Michigan.
I think both totals are going to be really exciting to play live as well. Get a rhythm for these games individually here. I'm sticking sides. It's UConn in game one. So Wolverines in game two. I went minus 120 on the money line there. I'm not dealing with Michigan winning by one. That would absolutely ruin my Saturday. But I don't think it's going to be by one. I think it could be by a bit more than that. This Wolverines team is so battle tested. We've seen it at Purdue, at Illinois, at Michigan State. And I think we see it again here today against Arizona, who certainly are battle tested in their own right. But it's a group who rely on getting to the free throw line and attacking the offensive boards, and Michigan won't make that easy. I think Arizona has a harder time scoring in this game than the Wolverines, and Michigan find themselves in the national championship game. We appreciate all of you hanging out with us here on College Basketball today. For Coach James Young and Kevin Walsh, we'll see you next time.